on the week ahead and talking about some trading setups, ideas, and maybe just a dash of follow-up on what we were discussing last week with the dollar, which continues to sort of be my main focus when it comes to markets that I'm most interested in, things that I'm trading myself, etc. So what I'd love to do here is start out and just talk a little bit about a trade that I am personally in myself, which is, of course, the dollar Swiss idea. And if you were here last week, you know I discussed two major pairs the most. I talked about the dollar Swiss franc and the euro dollar, both of which I had a favorite towards the dollar itself. So before I get too far into the analysis, let me also just pause. If you're watching on my channel, then I just want to say welcome. Thank you for being here. But also that today's video or today's stream is actually sponsored by Eightcap. And this month, I have the privilege and the honor to be their guest analyst, where my goal is to sort of guide newer traders or maybe even more experienced traders who want to look at the market in a new way and share a little bit of my trading style. So a big shout out to Eightcap for having me on and for hosting me this month. It's been really cool so far, and I'm hoping that we can get a lot more good content and good trading in this month. Make sure to check out Eightcap down below in the description if you'd like to check them out. They're a really, really fantastic group of people. Everybody I've met there has been so nice and so accommodating. So definitely check them out if you're in the market for a new brokerage to trade Forex or commodities, indices, all sorts of stuff with. So again, in my channel, it'll be linked in the description. So check it out there. Okay, so let's see. I want to talk about the dollar Swiss first. So talking about USDCHF, what we can see here is that the dollar Swiss has actually broken out through the previous highs, which is great for my current trade that I've got on. And let me just show you guys. So this is basically the trade that I have on with dollar Swiss. I have a buy trade that I picked up last week in this candle here. My entry was not that great. And to be honest with you, my initial entry was it was okay, but I was able to stay in the trade, and that's really what matters, right? So a lot of times people focus like extremely heavily on trying to get the absolute perfect entry with every single one of their trades, right? But my goal is not to get the perfect entry, but rather to try and stay in a good trade and trail stops if I can. So I bought dollar Swiss here on a pullback after this big spike. I picked it up and I put a stop loss below the lows. Fortunately, I was able to stay in the trade, and now my stop loss is actually trailed into profit. So a little bit of an update, trailed into profit right now, which is a great spot to be in. So this was where my stop loss is. So the orange line is my stop loss, and the blue line is my buy entry. So if you're not familiar with trailing stop losses, the idea is basically just the way I like to use them is I basically like to follow market structure. So with this recent breakout, my plan actually today is to start trailing my stop further into profit. We got a nice move above the previous highs, right? So if we take a look left, what we can see here is that this, and this offered a lot of resistance to the dollar Swiss. We came up to that level again in my trade, and you can kind of see just a little bit of a turning point off of that. So that right there, of course, was just the question mark. The question mark was, can we break above the previous highs? Right? So if that level breaks above the highs, which it did, that to me is a trigger to go ahead and trail stop loss, which I plan to do after this stream. I'll share the updates inside of the Discord channel on this trade. Out of respect to Eightcap, I don't have it logged into my American broker. Unfortunately, Eightcap is limited to which countries they can do. If I could, I would totally be trading with Eightcap, but I'm in the US where regulation it's kind of strict. So of course, if you're inside of the Discord, I'll be updating it there. Anyways, the idea with dollar Swiss for me is continuing to be bullish until further notice. So when you get a breakout like this, where you get a new high, right? Where you get a new high after breaking out of the previous high, it's just a question of like, okay, well, now the goal is to try and see if we can get some sort of continuation, like a clear above this level, right? So we're above it. Can we stay above it, right? That's where it's going to be really key off of like the 4-hour and the daily chart. So that's where I'm at with dollar Swiss. There's a little bit of an update on an idea from last week. Now let's take a look. Let's broaden our horizon a little bit and talk about the dollar itself. The dollar had a key breakout here. If we take a look left, 112 came into play once again, where we found a lot of sell pressure previously, but it seems the bulls are strong enough to keep it and continue to push higher. So looking for higher lows here, continuing to look for, move back to the previous high, in my opinion, is sort of where I think we're headed with the dollar. And until further notice, I could be wrong about that, right? And we talk about this often on stream. The goal is never to try and call tops and bottoms and be the perfect, crystal ball owning predictor when it comes to markets. For me, I think most likely if the trend is going to continue, that we could see a return back to the highs. If the trend really continues, we actually expect a break above the previous highs, meaning breaking that 115 mark, which sounds crazy, but again, this is how trend following works, right? You have a major level of resistance, a previous high, and when it breaks, it can run like crazy. So as crazy as it sounds, we may be in for another move higher on the dollar if the trend does continue. So we got a nice start to the overall uptrend again. Found support last week really, really strong, and continued to look for more bullish setups. So expectations for me are return back to the highs. And if there's a pullback sort of intra-week here, it might be an opportunity, in my view, to possibly pick up the dollar again. So even if I, even if I already have a dollar position, let's say maybe I get trailed out of my trailed out of my trade for a profit today on dollar Swiss or tomorrow or something like that, but then it pulls back deeper to the 38.2, that might be a chance to try and pick it up again, whether it's dollar Swiss or something else. Speaking of something else, let's talk about some other pairs. Maybe how about euro dollar? So if we take a look at EURUSD, see what's going on with the euro dollar here this morning, continuing to melt overall. You can see this thing has just been getting hammered this year. So let's put our moving averages on just for a second. You can see on the daily chart a beautiful downtrend, right? The 100, the 50, and the 20 period moving average all sort of just flowing to the downside, which is what we're looking for as trend followers. This year has been really quite incredible for that. Yeah. So just kind of just continuing with that downward momentum overall. So how do we approach euro dollar? Well, the move itself, which is painful because I actually tried to short euro dollar like right around here. I'll be completely honest with you guys. I shorted euro dollar, put a stop above, got tagged out of that stop just before the market fell apart. And if you've ever been in that situation, you know that that is incredibly annoying. It happens to all of us. And the truth is, no matter how good or sniper entry style you get at trading, this will happen to you sometimes. And it's the worst. It's painful. It's annoying. But as traders, sometimes we could get educational for a second. A lot of times people will say like, oh, just trade like a robot, just suppress your emotions entirely when you trade. I think it's actually the opposite. I think the best way to approach your emotions when trading is not to suppress them, but to ask questions and to change the narrative a little bit. Instead of saying like, oh, I hate the markets, every time I put a stop on it, tags my stop and goes the other way. If you change the way you speak about it to yourself, eventually you start just accepting that some of the realities of the markets, they're not easy, that sometimes you just are off a little bit, right? Or just something is not quite right and the trade just didn't work out for whatever reason. It's okay to sort of change that narrative a little bit and just say, hey, you know what? It happens. Move on, take the next trade. Don't let it phase you too much. And sort of speak kindly to yourself when you're trading. It sounds really like hippie or weird, but it's the truth. It's really, really important to, mentally not just destroy yourself when you get stopped out, because people do that all the time. They completely ruin their chances of becoming profitable at any point because they're just so, frustrated and they have such a temper with their trading and they're never able to actually just execute a plan. And in this case, I shorted the euro dollar and I got stopped out of this. And I was a little annoyed. I was like, dang, that's sad because as soon as I get stopped out, it starts going the other way. But fortunately, I was able to catch dollar Swiss, which also has that positive exposure to the US dollar appreciating, which was, another way to catch the trade. So even though euro dollar, I caught dollar Swiss because I stepped up and just took the next trade, right? Good to see everybody in the chat, by the way. Thank you for being here. I hope everyone is having a good trading day so far. Markets started out with a bang. The dollar, again, starting out explosive. I would like to take a quick look at the gold market here in just a moment. We'll come to gold next. Let me finish my thought on euro dollar. So euro dollar, right? We broke back underneath that level of what was sort of what was resistance previously. It poked around in this area. I was a little off on the entry, but we did ultimately find sellers. So now if you're narrowing in a little bit on that, if on the higher time frames we're bearish, right? Where's the setup? Well, it kind of depends how aggressive you are with the euro dollar, but I actually think there might be more than one opportunity to try and short this thing, going forward. So let me expand upon that. So let's say we're looking at euro dollar, right? And we're saying, okay, well, we want to be in the sell, but we missed the initial move, right? My next step is if there's something that I want to be selling, right? Or there's something I want to be buying. My goal is not to, well, I missed it, let me just sell it here, or let me just buy it and ride it back up, right? Like that is quick gut-based decisions. For me, the idea is, okay, I would like to be short on euro dollar, but I'm not. What's my next option? Well, I can either wait and get the entry, or do absolutely nothing if it keeps going and just accept that sometimes the market leaves you at the station, if you will. So let's set up scenarios. Maybe euro dollar pulls back to 38.2, and that would be interesting to possibly pick it up. So attempt number one could possibly be a sell at the 38.2, which lines up nicely with this little level of resistance here. Okay. So we have scenario number one. And let's say that we go ahead and we say, okay, well, if price comes up there, I'm going to sell the euro dollar. And this is how I approach, setting up a trade scenario. So price comes up and let's say I want to risk 50 pips at this level of resistance. It lines up with 38.2. We have a daily chart downtrend. We have resistance here where we found a lot of sellers in this area. Okay, so price comes up and tags us into the trade. And again, we're just speaking in theory, we're setting up scenarios. And this is what we do these sort of streams for. This is where we do week ahead ideas or days in advance ideas, is because we need to know, like, okay, what's the plan before the action is upon us, right? It's time, it's important to do this stuff in advance, not in the moment. So I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, well, if price comes up to that 38.2, if we find a local bottom here, like a recent low at 96.84, and then we start to rally up to 38.2, then I could probably set up a scenario where I'm looking for a continuation of this overall downtrend. And let's say I'm just looking for a move back down to like 95.50. For me, what I'd like to do, truthfully, is trail stops as long as this thing wants to go. But just for simplicity, let's say that I'm roughly shooting for a move back down to support at 95.50, right? In that case, that's a 5-to-1 trade. Now, let's set this up where I said, okay, this is trade number one idea, but what about number two, right? Number one is a move back up to here and I try and sell this. But what if number one just makes me look like an idiot and the market just flies up to the heavens and says, see ya, and takes my stop loss? I could stomp around my kitchen and get mad and yell at my cats, but that would do me no good, right? And that's where I think a lot of traders, that's where they go wrong, right? They constantly they take it so personally when the market just tells them they're wrong, where I get it wrong all the time. I've been trading for a long enough time to realize that the markets are not that predictable, right? It'd be nice if we could just, oh, the markets are certainly going to fall here and they're certainly going to rise here. It would be so easy. But if you think about it logically, that's why not everybody does this, right? That's why most people do not have a stomach for trading, call it gambling, think it's stupid, think there's no possible way to make money in it, right? Because it's hard. It's not easy. So mentally it's hard, and technically and strategically, logically, it's not an easy thing. It seems easy, right? Buy at support, sell at resistance. That sounds really easy, but yeah, alas, it is not that easy. So let's talk about scenario number one, right? So we already discussed scenario number one, but what about number two? So let's say that I have a plan to sell the euro dollar. And idea number one is a retest of this area, but then idea number one fails miserably, let's just say. Again, we're speaking hypothetically. And then number two gets triggered. Maybe this is the one that works out a lot better. And we're also able to make back even more than we lost on the first trade by catching a good risk reward. Now, it is also, of course, possible that the euro dollar just goes through both levels. But most of the time, not always, I'm able to catch some sort of good move on one of these trades. And that's why I'll oftentimes take two, right? I'll try once and then I'll try a second time on a particular asset. And we could do the exact same thing on several of the assets that we're going to talk about today. We could now move on to something like gold, and let's talk about XAUUSD and see what's going on with the gold market today. So again, you might be feeling a little bit of hindsight, or not hindsight, FOMO, if you're looking at gold today, because of course gold is moving down. We're swinging to the downside here this morning, and you might be saying, "Wow, I missed the sell." We marked up our charts. We talked about the sell on gold, and look at this, you guys. We broke underneath this level, and just like we discussed last week, there was a break, retest, and then it dropped. So a beautiful start to the gold sell here. And again, very similar. We're going to sound like a broken record here from our analysis on euro dollar. Very similar stuff on the gold market, right? So gold comes up to this level. Of course, I thought it actually, I'll be honest, as always with you guys, I thought gold would sell sooner than this. I thought we might see a little bit more rejection once we tagged this level, but I was wrong. And what actually ended up happening is we retested a little bit deeper before finding sort of that seller that came in here. So you can see, I thought maybe we would get this level. So this was a key spot on the chart. Obviously it did not hold as well as I thought it would. We had other plans in mind, but then retested here around 125, or sorry, 1725, 1725 was the level where we really start to see sellers come back in favor of that daily chart downtrend. So until further notice, I think we see gold continue to go lower. And of course, that's not necessarily like, what is certainly going to happen. It's just a bias that I maintain until proven otherwise, right? So if I'm looking at gold, I can't sell it here, and I'm definitely not buying it here. So what do? Right? And this is, again, where we're going to start sounding like broken records. We wait for the pullback, and we look for opportunities for possible re-entries if you miss the initial move. So let's say we start from the very top. You know what? Actually, I like this more. So what I like to do with my fibs is I like to look for pretty straight shot moves to draw my fibs. So if we get like consolidation, I won't, instead of, it's going to give you roughly the same area. This is why fibs and just in general technical analysis is not perfect. It's a bit subjective because the only reason technical analysis would work in the case that it does is if everyone is looking at it and finding the same general areas to buy or sell, right? If everyone's looking at the same concepts. But as many of you guys already know, people draw their charts differently. People have different zones. They have different trend lines. They have different moving averages. People draw it differently. So if we can just catch the general idea of an area, this is why I often talk about how hard it is to get the perfect entry. Everyone draws their charts differently. So the perfect entry arguably doesn't really exist unless you just have, a crystal ball and you're doing something fishy. No, overall, I'm content enough to just look for general areas. And in fact, in here, what I see is two scenarios that gold looks good on. And it's going to sound just like the euro dollar, 38.2, right? And the 61.8. Preference here, I would say, to the 61.8 because we saw such a rejection here. You can see beautiful. Look how this gold market moved. So we dropped underneath this. This was actually NFP news. And then we rallied back. But then by late afternoon on Friday and now into Monday, we see really strong capitulation to the downside. So very, very strong move there. So the question is, well, how do we get in, right? How do we catch a move like this if we didn't catch the initial move? Well, my opinion is gold could be a sell and a retest. Now, I'm not telling you to go do this. I'm just telling you that this is my opinion. I think gold looks attractive to the sell side. Should we poke up into 1695, 1706, lining up nicely with those fib levels. So if we were to look at this, again, we'll do the same thing where we take two theoretical trades. So we have a little structure there, maybe just above 1700 as a stopping point, and then marking the recent low here. This already is a 4.5 to 1, give or take. So maybe scenario number one comes into play and we try it there. But then let's say that one doesn't work. Same idea as the euro dollar. We can widen our stop just a little bit, maybe to accommodate some of this resistance looking left. And we can say, okay, well, this case is also about a 4.5 to 1, give or take. So scenario one, maybe that one comes into play and let's just say that one works out, right? But if it doesn't, scenario two could be our second attempt, right? That sort of thing. And then of course, there's the occasional time where we're just dead wrong. So I speak in theory like this when it comes to my trading setups and stuff like that, because, you always have to ask yourself, if something happens, then what am I going to do, right? And you can't make those decisions on the fly. You have to be prepared for them before you even place a trade, in my opinion. The second you have a trade on, you should already know all the possible outcomes. How much you're going to possibly going to lose? How much are you going to possibly win? And what are you going to do if a trade moves in your favor or moves against you? How are you going to manage the scenario, right? All these questions should be things that you think about before you even place the trade. So there you go. Guys, real quick, I just want to remind you that if you're watching here on my channel, we've got about 380 people watching. Hello, good to see you. Thank you for being here. If you're in the market for a new brokerage, today's sponsor is Eightcap. They've actually been sponsoring us this month, and I'm currently doing a segment for them twice a week for this entire month. I'm their guest analyst. In case you missed this in the opening, I would really encourage you guys, if you haven't already checked out Eightcap and you're, again, considering looking for a new brokerage, there will be a link down below in the description. I just want you to think about this for a second. Eightcap is putting money on the line to sponsor our company, to put out content and make videos, and as well as, have me on as a guest analyst for the month. They're investing in the trading community and offering the best that they can. And I'm honored to be able to help them with that and to do that. So check them out for nothing else. Just consider them for all the awesome free stuff that they're putting out by proxy through me and sponsoring our content. It really means a lot to us. This is how we, again, are able to do this content on a daily basis. We have sponsors like Eightcap that make this all possible. There's lighting and cameras and all that stuff. So a big shout out and appreciation to Eightcap for putting this on. And really, everybody that I've met and worked with there has been so top notch. They do two things I really appreciate. Eightcap itself is a fantastic brokerage. They also have the trading battle, which, if you guys have seen me on the trading battle, I've had the honor to go on there several times, which has been a lot of fun. And they're just doing stuff like that. They're just investing in the trading community with a level of professionalism that is rare. It really is rare to see that sort of commitment and dedication to the community, and I really appreciate it. So there you go. There's your plug, but it is genuine. I really do appreciate the people there and would encourage you to check them out. So let's see. Someone said I sold NZDUSD. Let's go take a look. Sold NZDUSD. Look at that. The Kiwi dollar has just been getting slammed here today and back down at the lows. So similar concepts to the dollar, right? We maintain just that overall favoritism to the dollar until further notice. The world is super risk off right now. They're super concerned about recession and inflation fears and all that sort of stuff. And I personally think, as I have for pretty much the entire year here of 2022, that the dollar is still a buy until proven otherwise. Just when I think like, man, the dollar seems like it's run its course, right? Every time that thought creeps into my head, the dollar rallies further. And this has got to be a really tough year for a lot of investors out there who are fading or trying to fade the dollar consistently, despite strong fundamentals and strong technicals pointing towards the dollar continuing to be bullish. Now, of course, that will crack some point. We're not going to say the dollar is bullish forever. We're going to say until it changes its mind, right? We're going to try and trend follow, which is what, if you're familiar with my style, that's what I consistently talk about, is sort of going with the flow, if you will. Is Eightcap able to be used in the US? Unfortunately, no. Otherwise, I'd be using them. But if you're outside of the US, you can check them out. And like I said, I would encourage you to at least review what they have to offer, open a demo account, that sort of thing. Check it out. I'd like to hear your opinion on US 30, massive downtrend, but now rallying uptrend. We could talk about the indices a little bit. Let's talk a little about NZDUSD, which has some correlation, by the way, to the indices. The Kiwi dollar as well as the Aussie dollar have some level of correlation to risk on assets. Why? Because they're a smaller economy that tends to do better and outpace and get foreign investment. And also the positive carry trade often is associated with NZD and AUD, right? Historically speaking, they in good times, so raise interest rates and attract foreign investment. But right now, we sort of see the opposite. We see money flowing out of those places and into the safe havens like the US dollar. So until that changes, again, we're looking at this thing more on the bearish side, right? Looking for breaks, retests, and continuations until further notice. So I would just say we're pegged here at the low. If that low gets broken, again, same story, just looking for trend following opportunities with stops in place. Bro Voice says, you're the best, Nick. Thank you, Bro Voice. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Pound dollar, dollar CAD. Okay, a couple good requests here. I'd like to just take a quick look now in reference to NZD and AUD pairs on the indices. Of course, the indices have been just getting smoked recently. Really quite a tough year for equities. Down overall in the S&P 500 around 25%, give or take, and the Dow Jones probably in the neighborhood. So let's just do a quick overall. We can see we're sitting around minus 21% on US 30, which is proxy for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And so when we look at this to me, we have to keep going with our theme, right? Trend following to the downside. And personally, I'll just give you guys my my logic. I don't like to short equities. Equities tend to rise over long periods of times. And truthfully, when I approach equities, I look at them at a much longer term perspective than like a short term day trading perspective. Day trading, short term, this thing looks bearish. But longer term, you know, I view these as opportunities to buy stocks at cheap prices. Will they get cheaper? Possibly. But again, longer term, I'm not trying to time so much. Short term, though, we have just a bearish market here, right? We have a lot of strength to the downside. We're looking at the daily. And if we narrow into the 4-hour chart, you can see that each time this thing attempts to get a rally going, we find sellers that poke it back down. So I would be cautious until we start seeing something change. So if you're looking at the US 30 and you're saying, I'd like to buy this thing, well, again, if the pattern continues of every rally getting faded, that would be super uncertain to me to try and go buying this thing in the short term. But if you see something like this, let me give you a bullish case scenario. If you're looking for equities to rally, possibly you get something like this. Okay, you come up to resistance and you acknowledge the fact that, okay, probably a good shot that resistance holds here and we see sellers come in. But if it doesn't, if we get a breakout, that could be grounds for a bit of a run up on the equities market. I'd love to see it, to be honest with you. My stock account would also love to see it. You know, it's been a tough year, like I said, for equities, and a large portion of the investing that I do is in equities. So, you know, I would love to see it, but just from a short-term perspective, it's been a tough year, and trying to assume that this is going to happen is a tough game to play. So I'd like to see a break above resistance. I'd like to see that sort of start to come to fruition before assuming that's going to happen or trying to go long equities myself. That's just my take on it. Let's continue. We'll take a look at GBPUSD, much the same to the other USD crosses that we've been discussing. Bearish on the pound. And if we take a quick look at the Edge Finder, I'd be curious to see what's coming up on the sell side. Yep, that's what I was anticipating, was a little bearishness on the pound, a little bearishness on the euro and gold. So all of these maintaining a strong sell going into this week, with Aussie dollar not far behind. If you're not familiar with the Edge Finder, this is our tool, which I would encourage you to check out. Yeah, do we have a guest in the stream right now? Eightcap, I see you in here. Just want to make sure. Oh, there they go. Okay, cool. We're all set. So last thing I want to say about the Edge Finder here, this tool, basically what we use is all these different indicators, right? You've got inflation measurements, unemployment, GDP, the commitment of traders data, the retail sentiment, so on and so forth, seasonality, all these different indicators. We use them to sort of gauge a forecast for the different assets that we watch. There'll be a link down below in the description on my channel if you'd like to check out the Edge Finder. And if you're watching somewhere else, you can just go to a1trading.com and check it out there. But you can get access to the tool there. And if you have any questions, you can chat with my team there. But here's the thing, right? With the USD, it's just, for me, it's just a pattern of stay the course until something changes. When it changes, we adapt. I hope that makes sense. That is just, you know, it is just a very simplistic way of looking at trading. You know, just trend following, trailing stops, that sort of thing. And again, for those of you guys who are inside of our private Discord channel, we are going to continue to trail stops on dollar Swiss, which is the trade that we have running. And for those of you guys who watched the Eightcap webinar last week, you know also that is sort of our recent idea has been dollar bullishness and looking for that. Can you even see my chat? Yes, I can. I can see you guys. Hey, Backdoor Chris, good to see you. Thank you for being here. I hope that you're doing well. I apologize. We've got chats coming in from all over the place. So if I miss a message, I apologize. Do you trade USO USD? Do I trade oil? Let's see. Oil is an interesting one. So I'll give you this. When it comes to oil, right? Oil, it is very similar to the Canadian for me. So if I'm looking at oil right now, which is again trending higher, looking quite strong with the recent breakout, I'll trade actually the CAD pairs. So for example, maybe I'm looking at CADJPY and I'm looking for long scenarios, right? Because whether you're familiar or not, I'll go over this really quick. The Canadian dollar has some positive correlation to the oil market. Why is that? Well, Canada is a large exporter of oil. And so when the oil market tends to do well, the price of oil is going up, right? Which means the Canadian economy can sell it for more money, relatively speaking, in their own currency. So it makes their currency a little bit stronger, if you will. So oftentimes I don't trade actually US oil itself or USO or any of those. I don't trade any of the ETFs per se, but I will oftentimes consider oil when thinking about trades or scenarios that I'm looking at myself on the Canadian dollar. So we'll just do a CAD idea for you for a second. I'll show you guys CAD yen. So CAD yen overall trending nicely to the upside. I think that CAD yen is bullish until we see some sort of breakout underneath structure, as well as this 100-day moving average. You can see it's been holding really nicely. CAD yen, if the oil market does continue to appreciate, could actually be a buy, in my opinion, in these areas a little bit on a longer term basis, right? You've got a little bit of a higher time frame idea here, just kind of continuing to trend higher. So for me, that's where I'm looking at. Hi, Archie. Thank you for being here. I see you on the 8cap side. Archie, thank you for tuning in. I hope that this has been helpful to both the people that are watching on my channel as well as 8cap. And I'll just do a little cross to each other. If you guys would like to check out 8cap, the link will be down below in the description. And if you're watching from 8cap and you'd like to find out more from myself, you can tune into my YouTube channel anytime you'd like. Just search up TraderNick. TraderNick, one word on YouTube, and that's where I'm at. I do these streams all the time. And this month, I'm super excited to be doing it for 8cap as their guest. Raj Neal says, hi, Nick, do you trade? Oh, wow. That's an interesting comment. Just kidding. That's funny. Thank you, Raj Neal, for the 8cap side of things on Wednesday, doing a private webinar for you guys, a little bit of recap, a bit of educational content. So if you guys are watching from my channel, you'd like to tune into that to check out the link in the description. And with that said, guys, thank you very much for watching. That's going to do it for me today. We will see you back tomorrow. See you guys later.